friends, I'm Claire and I wanted to make a little short video on staying focused when you work from home. I think working from home actually is kind of a lot like meditation in the sense that they're both, an important part of doing both is being able to focus your mind. So I want to go over a few little tips that I've developed for myself for working from home. So the first one is to have a routine. The second one is, within that routine, how to break up your time. And then the third one, because I love meditation, is about meditation and how to kind of work that into your routine. So from the top, routine is really important. I mean, anyone who works and has to kind of schedule their own work time already knows this. But routine, for me, it's a huge part of staying productive. So you get up in the morning, you have your morning routine, whatever that is, and you know you're going to work certain hours. And it can be difficult to work from home because you could work any hours. And so either A, it can be difficult to stay focused and get your work done, or B, it can be kind of easy to let your work take up all your hours. And especially if you don't have other stuff going on in the evening, to just stay plugged in all day. So both of those really are not optimal in terms of productivity. So the first thing I want to say about routine is I have a dedicated space, a little home office area that I work in. So it's easy to go there and to know, okay, when I'm here, all I'm going to do really is work. I don't use my work computer for, excuse me, for the things I would usually do like with a device, but on my leisure time. So for instance, I have a tablet and that's where I read, that's where I watch videos. Okay, I also watch videos on my phone. I would watch movies on something other than my work computer. So that computer is just for work. My workspace is also just for work, and my desk is kind of not tidy right now, but it'd be great to have a tidy space so that your attention is not kind of scattered all over the place. So that's in terms of time and place, having certain things set aside for work and other things for not work, whatever that is. So in terms of time, so I talked a bit about place with having like a designated area. If you have kids or you have other people who are sharing the house with you, it may be that much harder to find a designated area that people aren't going to be running into. But it's super, super helpful to have your own space for that, that's only used for that. Little asterisk, that's also super helpful if you're trying to start a meditation practice, to have a dedicated space for that practice too. So in terms of time, I mentioned briefly having times that you work and times that you don't work. And for me, that's really important because it can just feel as though you're you have an entire day, and it's easy to go into that day thinking, oh, I have so much time. And then you get to the end of it and you think, well, what did I do? So that leads me to the second point, which is the Pomodoro timer. And you probably have heard of this already, but in case you haven't, I totally recommend Googling it. I'll put the spelling on the screen here so you can see it. And basically this timer, there's a whole system of work that can go with this timer, but it doesn't have to. So if you're doing like the full Pomodoro system, you would sit down at the beginning of a day, you would prioritize your tasks, figure out like what's the most important thing that I need to do today, and you're going to guesstimate how long it would take you to do that. So I'll come back to that sort of like like that meta level of the Pomodoro timer in a second. But I want to describe right now what the Pomodoro timer cycle actually is. So it's a cycle of working and resting. And you can set the work and rest times for different things, but what seems to work well for a lot of people is to do a 25-minute work session, a 5-minute break, and then another 25-minute work session, another 5-minute break. So you do 4 of those and then you take a longer break. So that long break can be 15 to 30 minutes. If you're working from home, it can be a nice time to like fold some laundry or do some small project, but it's really important to set a timer for that project so you don't end up like an hour later and you've cleaned your entire kitchen, but now you're not getting anything done that you needed to for work. So that's the basic Pomodoro cycle of working and resting. And I'll talk a little bit more about the rest breaks in that cycle in the final segment on meditation or contemplative practice. So getting back to sort of the way that you incorporate a Pomodoro cycle into your workday, you start out at the beginning, like I said, make a list of what you want to do in the day, and you take a guess as to how many Pomodoro cycles each of those tasks is going to take. And it's just a good idea in general to know what your most important stuff for the day is and to do that first. It's also a good idea to take into account your own natural rhythms. So if you're more productive on creative things in the morning, as you know, a lot of people are, you might sit down, do those things first, and then even if there's something pretty important, just let it wait until after you've done your creative tasks or whatever really needs like your most focused prime brain time. So schedule around that. So you might have things like replying to emails, I don't know, checking social media. You can check social media during your break time, so I'll talk about that in a second. But you definitely want to, with each of these Pomodoro sessions, do only your work task. So for a given session, for me, I might give myself 25 minutes to just sit down, write a blog post, and then whatever I've got at the end of that 25 minutes, that's going to be the post, and I'm going to move on to the next thing, the next task. Typically, or like in a sort of classical way of using the Pomodoro timer, they would say only do one task during a given Pomodoro session, or if you have multiple small tasks, like really list out each of those tasks for that given session so you know what you're supposed to be doing. I think that's especially helpful when you're working from home, like knowing what you need to be doing at any given time, because it's easy to kind of just start spinning your wheels and, you know, maybe you're replying to emails, but you've spent 2 hours doing that and you don't really need to spend that much time on email. Or you're spending your prime time on these sort of little tasks like email that maybe you could do at a time when your brain is more tired. But the main thing with a Pomodoro session is during that 25 minutes of work time, you're not checking social media. Optimally, you put your phone on silent, especially right now with all the craziness going on and as many texts and notifications as probably we're all getting. It's really helpful to just put your phone on silent and do only work tasks. And then during your break times, you'll do other stuff. So I find that really, really helpful because it's easy to start jumping around during any given work session. Like say that I'm working on editing a video like this one. And then I suddenly think like, oh no, what if this person emailed me, and I go to my inbox and boom, like I lose my focus on the task at hand. There's actually a name associated with switching our focus. It's called a switching cost. So anytime we switch our focus from one task to another, we have to set down the guidelines for the old task we were doing, bring to mind the guidelines for the new task, and it just takes mental energy. So research has found that we actually lose something like 40% of the time that we spend multitasking. So that's a huge, huge benefit of working with a Pomodoro timer and really using it to stay focused on one task. And you might think that sounds kind of exhausting, but what I've found is that actually working in that focused way and then taking breaks is much less tiring than just sitting down and kind of slogging through a bunch of stuff for 4 hours and then getting up from my desk. And that leads me to point number 3, which is meditation or contemplative practice. It's my video, so you knew this was coming somewhere. But I think it's actually really, really important as we go through a workday, not to just work, but to also have times to rest. And, you know, I kind of think about this in terms of the balance of yin and yang. And we turned with yang being, for those who aren't familiar with it, the more like active, aggressive, getting stuff done orientation to the world. And then yin would be more of the resting, receptive orientation to the world. So a lot of us tend to just focus on yang. What am I getting done? I need to do the next thing. Check, check, check. Let's go through our list. And actually it's the yin times, the resting times, when a lot of creative ideas can really come to the surface. And whatever we've been focused on, if it's something that our logical, rational mind isn't necessarily equipped to like solve or come up with, it can be that more receptive, intuitive mind that can give us some great insights. So it's super, super helpful to be taking these little breaks as we go through the workday. I like to unplug during these rest sessions in the Pomodoro timer cycle. So if you have a 5-minute rest, it can be really tempting to just get on Facebook right quick and check and see what's happening, or whatever your social media addiction of choice is. But what I find is that when I do that for my rest, it's not actually restful. It just kind of scatters my mental attention in even more directions, so that when I start working again, my brain just doesn't feel refreshed. Whereas if I get up from the desk, move around, take a bathroom break, go downstairs for no reason, stare out the window, any of those things, they don't involve taking in new information. And I find that super, super helpful for these rest periods. Just don't take in new stuff. And it's super tempting, especially at a time like this when there's so much news going on and we want to stay in touch with, family and friends and see what's happening with them. It's really tempting to take those rest times to catch up on that stuff, but I would highly recommend not doing that. Actually taking a break, getting centered, especially in these kind of very unsettled times, taking a tiny little break, even 1 or 2 minutes out of your rest period to sit, settle, take 3 deep breaths, close your eyes, feel those breaths as they go down, as the air comes into your lungs, feel the air going out of your lungs. Super simple. So that's one way of incorporating just a tiny little bit of contemplative practice, meditation, whatever you want to call it, into your Pomodoro cycle. Another option that I really like is to get on an app like Insight Timer and find some short 5-minute meditations that you like and bookmark those meditations. And then anytime you have a 5-minute break where you just want to unplug right quick, have somebody guide you through a meditation, maybe even just listen to a 5-minute music track and relax and unwind, you already have them there in your bookmarks. And on Insight Timer, you can search your bookmarked meditation tracks by length. So you can search for everything from 0 to 5 minutes, for instance. So I highly recommend folding in some meditation into your workday by using something like that with a Pomodoro timer to really help you get grounded in the middle of a chaotic external situation, but also, our prefrontal cortex has to work really hard to keep us on task. And when we give that prefrontal cortex a little break, and actually our prefrontal cortex, I don't remember if it gets activated or deactivated during meditation, but it's definitely not trying to hold our attention on emails or something else. It's holding our attention on a much more soothing object, which is breath or loving kindness or just a body scan. So I hope these tips are helpful. I hope whoever you are, wherever you are, that you're staying safe, that you're able to sort of get grounded a bit, find a new routine in these uncertain times. And what else can I say? I hope we're all well, stay well, be well. I'll see you later.